Java Technology Centers, and our partners, invited guests on various interesting topics on Java technologies. This is the first session in that series. You would also be able to meet up with a lot of experts virtually and then get to know what they think, where Java is going, key tips, their own experiences. We are running a week-long blog fest where we encourage participants from the community to blog their thoughts on Java. And then there would be a lot of other things we will do, things like a live chat that is going to be scheduled on Thursday. We will announce that today, wherein we will have experts available to answer your questions on anything related to Java. And you would also see what we'll post as Java Technology Bites, which are self-running modules on very quick introductions on some interesting aspects of Java. We will cover a host of topics as you would have seen, and we have a lot of key speakers to deliver that. The first session today is on programming with Enterprise Edition 6. This was to be delivered by Sriram from Mindtree, who unfortunately is not able to do it because of a personal emergency in his family, and he had to travel yesterday. But we have this talk being delivered now by A.B. Vijay Kumar, who is an executive IT architect with the Global Business Services teams. I will let him introduce, but in summary, he has about 14 years of experience with 10 years in managing and leading a full life cycle of software design. And he also, interestingly, received an award by former President Mr. Kalam and IBM CEO Sam Palmisano for the solution that he architected for tsunami disaster recovery. But I'll leave it to Vijay to talk a little bit more about himself. So we will start off this session, and I will request everybody to go on mute. If there are any questions, we can take them along the way. And I will hand it over to Vijay now. Vijay, if you could take over. And before you start off your session, you would need to click on the record now button so that this is a recorded session and we can make it available to the audience after the session. So welcome everybody again, and we look forward to an interesting and exciting week with you on Java. So thanks for joining, welcome, and let's get going.
Thanks, Rajiv. In fact, I already started recording when you started speaking. I hope that's okay. So with that, thanks for the introduction. Everyone on the call, it is good to get this opportunity to talk a little bit about JavaEE6, which I'm sure all of you would know is the latest specification for Enterprise Edition. So a quick introduction myself, I think Rajiv has already covered it. I'm an IBM certified executive IT architect and Open Group certified distinguished chief IT architect. My experience is predominantly on web technologies, Enterprise Edition, enterprise solutions for based on web technologies, e-commerce and all that, including a little bit of experience in mobile portals and mobile web, right? So what I'm going to do for the next 40-45 minutes is talk about the key features that are there in JavaEE6 and emphasize on some of the aspects which I am excited with personally, which I have been looking for. And what I also did is realizing that most of the people on this call are developers. I thought I will share some of the code that will show how easy it is to do enterprise applications in JavaEE6, right? Some of this code I stole from the web, but some of them are from the live examples that I tried. So bear with me there. So with that, let's get started on this. I hope all of you guys are able to see the slide navigation that I am on, right?
Now departing.
So, like I said, the high-level agenda is what is the inspiration behind JEE6. So a lot of cries, lot of curses from the developers has reached the Java community, I guess. So a lot of good things.
Week2 Bangalore.
There are a lot of good things that I'm sure you will appreciate when I talk about them as developers that are there as part of JEE6, and it's quite exciting, and it is like bringing me back into JEE. I'm sure all of you would have faced this someday or the other, where a lot of times you would have thought, hey, why can't I just live with Pojo, or why can't I just do a web-based application? Why should I overload my system doing enterprise beans and all that? And there are a whole host of performance issues as you go. There is a lot of requirement in terms of RAM, in terms of the server capacity and all that. So I'm sure you would have faced that, but in my experience, I have faced that where the EJB performance is one of the key things that kind of, it's like a bottleneck for most of the performance issues that we had in all of these systems, right? So it is good to see a lot of things have changed, and a lot of things are lightweighted if you look at. We'll talk about it. And I'll touch upon the key changes that are there in JEE6 in terms of the EJB3 specification 3.1. JSF is included as part of JEE6 now, which is the good news. So we have a good MVC architecture built into the web container. So we don't have to really look for plugins or things like that. So I mean the external frameworks and try to break our head on how we want to integrate those frameworks into the core JEE system that we are running. A lot of cool things in Servlet 3. CDI is integrated, which is again a good news, which means a lot of things are going to be based on annotations, less XML, which is very good news. REST is part of the specification, which is again a very good news. You don't have to break your head in trying to get REST API or REST frameworks into the system and not working. Why are they not working? Things like that. And the container beans are kicked out, which is again a good news. At least in my experience, I've always had a lot of issues with that. And what is cool is they have included the JPA, which was informally not part of this, but now it is part of it, which brings in the best practice of OR, object relational mapping, which is cool. The criteria API, again a cool API. We'll talk about it. Bean validation, again a very very neat API which will help you. And then what I'll do towards the end is I have a user scenario. I will walk you through very quick user scenario in terms of how these things work together so that you get a picture. And in all of these slides, I tried to minimize the words. I tried to have some code snippets. These are not compilable codes, but this code is basically for you to understand what are these concepts, how do I do that. And of course, you can go offline and do some more research, and you'll be able to understand what exactly is the syntax. So it's not really to give you a complete understanding of the syntax and how exactly to do it, right? So then towards the end, we'll have some time where we can discuss about some of these aspects. Like I said, I am as new as you guys are on this technology. Just that, I did some reading and some hands-on examples on Windows, WebSphere 8 beta version and little bit on Glassfish. So that is what I'm trying to share here. So I would like to call it more discussion rather than question and answer, right? So I may not have all the answers is what I'm saying. So I'm just trying to play safe here, right? Having said that, moving on, the key features or the motivation behind JEE6 is, like I said, a lot of fat is reduced, right? So this is what we really wanted from JEE, and we have been wanting for this for a very long time. In fact, since the first day, we rolled out our EJBs and where we got into, dead-end roads of, how can we fix this, how can we get this thing running, in terms of performance. I think this is a big relief. There is a lot of effort that I think Oracle has taken, or the Java community has taken to reduce a lot of fat from JEE. So there is a new concept called profiles, right? So right now there are only 2 profiles, but the idea is to have more profiles as we go forward. Profile is like a customized, configurable version of each of the, based on the particular application, right? So for example, right now we have 2 profiles. One is full profile and web profile. We'll talk about it in detail, what goes in, what doesn't go in. The idea is to have the JEE as the core system, right? And they have removed all the stuff out of it. I mean, what is like an external API or external framework? They have just removed it off, and they have made it more like an add-on. So which is a cool thing, right? So you can create your own profile based upon the kind of add-ons or the kind of frameworks that you want to plug and play, right? So that is a beautiful thing about this JEE6, which means it is all left to us as architects or developers or designers to decide what is exactly required for that particular enterprise system and plug and play those frameworks alone rather than, having the whole bulk JEE running in our containers. So that is the key thing there, right? The second key thing is the pruning. So what they have done is they have identified some candidates. We'll talk about it in detail again. They have identified some candidate frameworks which are on the way out, right? So they don't want to include that in JEE6 anymore. But however, these are some components which are very sensitive to some of the people who have already implemented it, who already vouch for it. So they may take a decision later in future to have them part of it, but right now they have kind of decided these as candidate components which might move out, right? However, move out doesn't really mean that they're not supported anymore, but you can always use those components or frameworks as pluggable add-ons and still be able to build your own profile is my point here, right? And extensible. So there's a lot of focus on extensibility. So how can we reduce the number of XMLs that we have? Like DLL hell, we used to talk about XML hell or things like that, right? So we have one deployment descriptor, we have another deployment descriptor. Did you define it in deployment descriptor? Did you then define the EJB, that sequence, and all that problems that we have is all gone, right? So there's a lot of extensibility in terms of annotation based, and CDI is also there. There is a injection, definition injection, and all that, which is coming, right? So which is good news for us. And there are a lot of new technologies that are added, fresh ones. Some of them were already there, like for example JSF, JPA. They were all outside and they were all not really standardized or anything like that. Everybody had their own way of doing it, and we always had a struggle to get these things working with the application server, J2E application server that we are running, right? So good thing is some of those things which are commonly used are now part of the JEE6. But like I said, they're more like plug and play components. We can always use it if we want. We don't want it. We don't have to use it. And then the advantage that you have is the application server. You can keep application server as thin as possible is the idea. And then for developers, a lot of good news, right? Predominantly, the programming model is based on POJO, right? And annotations. So if you know how to write a simple pure object, Java object, and if you know how annotations work, you already know 80% of how to do JEE, right? So that is the beauty. You don't have to understand the various APIs that are there, break your head to inherit it from somewhere and, make sure that you have updated it in XML, things like that. So that is very good news. So there's a lot of cleanup has happened in the EJB API itself. It is thinned down, all the unnecessary things are removed out, and annotations are added to make the developer's life easier, while in the background how these annotations gets related to a session bean or to a managed bean is something we don't have to worry. We just say, hey, this is a session bean, this is a managed bean with using some annotation notations, which we'll touch upon it, but again, we'll not go in detail. And then we leave it there. So that is another beauty. So in summary, these are the key changes that has happened. So moving on. So in terms of profiles is one key thing, right? So what you see here is it is based on the application. Where do you want to apply it? What kind of application are you doing? You can create your own profile. But right now there are two profiles which come out of the box. One is full profile. You can see the technologies listed there, the frameworks. The Servlet 3 version, JSF2 version, CDI, we'll talk about it, EJB 3.1, JPA2, bean validation, all these are part of it. And if you can see JMS, Java Mail, JAX Web Service, JAX REST Service, all that are not part of the web profile. So web profile is very, very thin. It is meant to do only for the web, web intensive application, not too much of business logic and all that. Right? We will touch upon all of the technologies that are listed there, but I go with some assumption in the interest of time that you guys already know what is Java Mail, so I will not touch upon that. I will not touch upon JAXB. I'm assuming you guys already know about it, so apologize if you don't know. JCA is again an older technology, so I'm hoping you guys already know about it. JACC, again, I'm sure you guys would have used it somewhere for authorization and all that. So I may not touch upon all those, but we'll touch upon definitely the servlet, the EJB enhancements, the JPA, bean validation, CDI very quickly, right? So and the rest, right? So with that, if you look at so Resin is one a server which has a pure implementation of web profile, right? So if you download Resin, the latest version, it implements the web profile. So the application server only comes with what you see as EX under web profile. So which is the beauty, right? So you don't need unnecessary things. Of course, you can always add some of these components if you want as plugins, right? So the logic behind that is to keep the application server thin so that it can run faster. So that is the basic logic. So a lot of times, I'm sure you guys would have faced this before. You get the whole bunch of technologies along with Java J2EE application servers, and then you realize, boss, I'm not using all of these things. Why do I need all these? Why should I configure all of these things? Why are they starting these services or these components and clogging my memory and the performance, right? So things like that. So that is one good thing about the profiles. Moving on pruning. So these are the 4 JSRs that are removed. The JSR 101 is removed, the JAX RPC, which was, this is purely based on the market and based on the community activity on these JSRs. Basically, I think the logic behind this is some of these, the 4 of these JSRs are not widely used, they are buggy, and people have alternate frameworks which do a better job. So they don't go for this. So that's why some of these are removed. So the JAX RPC is removed. It is replaced by JAX Web Services. The container managed entity beans are dropped. It is replaced by Java Persistence API, which is good news. It is more like Hibernate and all that. If you guys don't know what is JPA, it's like Hibernate. It's a OR mapping framework. And then JAXR is taken out, brought in instead of UDDI. JAXR is the registry of web services. So UDDI, though it had some of the concepts, I think UDDI was too ambitious to have one repository across the globe to, host all the services. So JAXR does the same thing, but more at a localized way and more at an enterprise level, right? So that is one good news. Having said that, it does not really mean that these APIs are not supported anymore. So you may still have the new versions of RPC being implemented by different frameworks. You can still bring it back and do a plugin. I'm not sure if you can do the entity beans though, but definitely you should be able to still continue to use RPC and UDDI if you already have an application server configured for it, right? So just you need to do a little bit tweak in configuration to get it working. And again, these are just the candidates, initial set of candidates. What I also heard is the application management JSR is also being identified as a candidate, but I'm not sure, so I did not put it here. The application server manufacturers or the Java community can decide to say, hey, this is an important JSR, we still need to have it, and at a later it may come back into JEE6, but right now, as of now, it is not, right? So that is the idea. Moving on, in terms of technology, what's new in JEE, right? So EJB 3.1 is there. Ease of use. It is a motherhood statement. We will touch upon some of the aspects of what I mean by ease of use, and I will show you some code snippets, like I said, which I borrowed from various presentations to show you how easy it is. JSF2 is part of the specifications. I think all of us, we had various APIs being used. So the facelets is one very cool feature that is included in JEE6, and as we go, we will talk about how easy is it to write a facelet, which is a reusable. Facelet is like a portlet for people who don't know what is a facelet. Only thing is, it is built on JSF technology or JSF pattern. Then Servlet 3 CDI is totally integrated into all of these components, which means everything is driven by the annotations that you write. You don't have to sit and type XMLs after XMLs to define the plugins and all that stuff. So the EJB, the servlet and all that.
Yeah, Vijay, sorry to disturb you.
Yeah.
These presentations will be shared?
I think so. I think, I'm not sure. So Rajiv, this presentation along with the video will be there online, right?
Yes, the presentations would be available in recorded form and also in the PDF form after the session.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So moving on, the RESTful web services. So as you guys would have realized, having web services, building a servlet for each web service and all doesn't make sense. So how can we look at lightweighting some of these web services? That's where REST came in. So for people who don't understand REST, I suggest, have a quick session or quick crash course on it before you jump into this. But this is really cool, really, really cool. So I will show you an example of how you do a REST, and it will blow you off, right? So it's very, very simple, right? And then we have Java Persistence API, again, a very, very useful and very, very easy to use API. There is also a cool API along with it called Criteria API. So you can define your database criteria, the select criteria and all that, what you write after where clause, right? All that in Java as objects, right? So which is very good. Bean validation, you don't have to write separate code to validate some of these data values that are coming in. You just put them as annotations, it will work. So we'll go in detail. So the next few minutes, we will just go through in detail some of these features with some code snippets, and then we'll summarize, okay? So CDI, I wanted to start with CDI because CDI is everywhere now. So you can see it is there in the entity bean, in the JSF, in the EJB. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So if you look at the JSF closer, you can see the managed bean is being used as employee.name. Employee is the managed bean. And I don't know, people who have worked on JSF may be able to understand this. We used to write manage bean as POJOs, right? So here, manage beans are beans, EJBs, right? So on right side, you can see the manage bean. So you can see the annotations that I'm using there. I'm saying it's a stateful, the scope is request, it is a named bean, and I'm defining the persistent context there. I'm creating a value of employee, which is the entity bean inside that, right? And then just adding the employee, right? On the top, you can see the entity bean, where I have directly mapped the long ID to employee ID in the database. So if you see, there is JPA, CDI, and EJB working together in one statement, if you look at, right? So I'm on the right side. Let me use the marker. That will be better, right? So if you look at this, right, here what I'm really doing is I'm basically mapping employee ID to the ID field in the entity bean, right? And here I'm mapping name with the name field, right? So the entity bean, so this is basically whole is basically, oh shucks, I don't know how to remove it. Okay, forget it. So this, I didn't mean to stop it off. I wanted to just highlight that whole thing. Okay. So this entity bean is an object mapped to relational database. So this is being over directly, right? Similarly, if you look at here, right? Here, I'm doing most of the stuff. I'm sure a lot of you would have done this before using annotations, so it's not totally new. But what is new here is how you integrate JPA, EJB seamlessly using CDI, right? So this is one very good example, right? Again, this is not a working code, so I suggest you guys do a better code than this to get it working. But I just wanted to, in bits and pieces, how it all integrates to each other, right? And the JS is actually talking to an entity bean. So when I say employee, I mean the employee bean, right? So it kind of directly fills in those data items, and then it calls the EJB here, right? When it wants to add, right? So save employee is the EJB. So all this thing you need to do externally, but then if you look at how seamless it is, it's very, very easy to do programming, and more than programming, I think the code is very, very readable. So if you just read it, you know what it is, right? So you don't have to open an XML separately to read what is this bean? Is this an entity bean, or is this what is the scope of the bean, or is it stateful or stateless, things like that, right? So here everything is there in one file. You just read it and you understand what is really happening. So which is again good news for people who are supporting mad code that is written by people, right? So which is good. This is a quick overview of CDI. Okay, moving on to EJB, right? So, like I said, for people who have worked on JSF, they should be able to know what a managed bean is, right? And in JSF, we used to do it using POJOs, where managed bean was basically your backend bean, which takes care of controller logic and all that, right? In EJB 3.1, EJB, you define a EJB as a managed bean. So EJB is nothing but a managed bean, but with extra transaction support. So for TX transactions, you can use different APIs, but then, how do you do transactions? This was one problem that we had in JSF, which is solved now. So these managed beans do transaction, are transaction sensitive, right? And asynchronous invocation, this is a very cool feature, right? So that is the code that you see here, right? In the bottom, you can see the code. Asynchronous invocation is, okay, let me grab the highlighter. Okay, so here is a bean example, right? So I'm saying this bean is asynchronous. I mean, this bill order method in this bean is asynchronous, which means the request might come in, but it might take some time for the request to be processed. So what happens is the control returns back to the client. So here is a client which is invoking the bean. Okay. So here he's invoking the bean. The client is invoking the bean. After that, the client can go ahead, do other things, which is the dot that you have, and later come back and say future.get. Okay. So that is the status. So if something has happened here, what I'm saying is, if everything goes fine, return complete. The process is complete. The request is complete. Otherwise, if there is a billing exception or some exception happening, it is failed, right? So at the client side, it invokes the bill order here and then does various other processing and later comes back based on, how much time it takes to basically check future.get. Now, if the status is complete, you do something. If it is failed, you do something else. So this is one cool feature. So you don't have to have one thread at the client side or wait for the server side to return you the value. So you can go ahead. And this is something we have faced time and again, right? So you have a lot of kicks transactions or some legacy transactions that are happening in the back end, which do not give a synchronous reply, right? So if you're going through some middle-oriented, message-oriented middlewares or ESB, for example, anything like that, most of the requests are asynchronous. It takes time. You cannot have the client or the JSF hanging there. So you just need to go ahead and then do this. So this is one cool feature. And imagine what you can do with this with Web 2.0 HTML5 features of server-side invocation and all that, right? So the callbacks that you have, so from the server side, you can actually refresh the HTML5 content in the front end. So there's, as you see, you can do we used to do with thick clients, and in client server architecture, we are able to do with the thin clients here. So that is the beauty here, right?
Vijay, I have one doubt.
Yeah.
This thing, asynchronous invocation, even this thing we can achieve using executor service.
Yeah, we can.
So here one thing I am saying is at the rate asynchronous annotation being added to that bill order business method.
Right.
This is important thing here is, right? Or like in EJB it works in synchronous manner. To make it asynchronous, we add this asynchronous annotation.
Yeah, that's the key thing, yes.
Okay.
And there are also other APIs that we used. The beauty here is it is all integrated into CDI. So as you see, there is not much of configuration. You don't have to break your head to get the configuration working and all that, right? So here you just say asynchronous. It knows what you mean by that.
Okay. So that is asynchronous adding is a dependency injection.
Yes.
Okay.
And the return, so it does bill order and it returns. At the client side, bill order will not hold the control. You see what I'm saying? So it starts on a different thread and it does all that stuff. Yeah. Another thing about this is the declarative timers. There are timer services which we use, but this is really cool. So you can schedule a method to run in a particular date time. So using annotations, right? So again, a very cool tool. You don't have to go to XML. You don't have to. Each application server had their own nightmares of implementing the timer services and all that. But all that I think is solved with this kind of a notation, and assuming all the application servers will definitely support these features, right? So these are some of the key things. And moving on to JSF2, right? I think nothing great here other than the adaptation of the JSF, which is already there in market, which is widely used. Other than that, the only thing which I liked about JEE6 approach for JSF is a facelet concept. It's like portlet.
The next line, next slide. I am in slide number 9.
No, I am on slide number 10.
Okay.
I thought
I'm seeing 10.
Okay. I think there's a slight delay. So
yeah.
Okay. So moving back to this, so if you look at this, it is again completely annotation driven. Another beauty thing is, I will show you what you see here as a code, right? So let me grab a highlighter, right? So here I am defining. Let's see here. So here I am defining an interface of a component, a facelet, right? I'm saying this is like object-oriented programming. If all of a sudden if you look at this, this is really like object-oriented programming. You are creating an interface, then you are providing an implementation of that, right? So you are saying a login portlet or a facelet consists of, okay, one user name and password and a login event, which actually is an action source, right? So that is what you are doing here. And you can reuse it here. So let me mark it in a different color. I don't know if it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Okay. So you are using it here. And you are binding that with the managed beans implementation. So in this case, the managed bean is nothing but our EJB, right? So you are basically calling the EJB function here. So it is really cool, you know. There is no intermediate Java code which talks to the EJB and all that, right? So the JSF is directly talking to the EJB as a managed bean. Now the cons of this is I think what I realized in my experience using JEE is the way you think, the way you design these components has to change, right? We are typically used to have a session facade, and then we are typically used to have one servlet doing some of the pre-processing and all that, right? So I think we need to break that thinking and see how we can utilize this new architecture pattern, or the design pattern to think little differently. So for people who are coming with a lot of JSF background, this is very straightforward because you already know how to use JSF. You use managed bean there. Here you are using EJB, which is nothing but a managed bean with transactions. So if you know JSF programming, this is not a big deal. But if you are coming with typical background of having one middle layer and then that middle layer talking to EJB, the EJB session bean talking to entity bean, things like that, I think we need to look at removing a lot of crap in between and think very light here. So we need to think of a light architecture. We need to think of having, minimal interactions between these, JSF and the EJBs. So that is the key message here. Okay, moving on. I'm on slide number 11. So modular web XML in Servlet 3, other than what you already have, the XMLs can be split into modules. I think we already used to do that, but the Servlet API supports it now. I mean, the web container supports it now. However, the master is still web.xml. In the master, you can link to multiple XMLs, and you can do, you can do dynamic loading of those components and all that. Another key feature is the programmatic addition of filters, listeners, and servlets, right? Which is, again, typically in the current implementations, we have to first write a servlet, then define that this is a servlet, this is a filter, or this is a listener, and all that. Now, the cool thing about Servlet 3 is programmatically you can write programs. In the program, you can add a new filter. In the program, you can add a new listener based upon the requirement. So sometimes you might want to enable the filters, so you want to create those filters on the fly, use them for temporary basis and remove them off. So you don't have to install those servlets all the time when the machine boots, when the application server boots up. That's another cool thing. Asynchronous processing support is also added into Servlet 3 to support the asynchronous processing at the EJB. Again, this is something which I have not tried yet, but it kind of helps in doing asynchronous processing with protocols like Comet and all that. But if you are having a lot of feeds and all coming from backend, I think you should be able to integrate them. And again, servlets are again a POJO based. There are no deployment descriptors. So there is an example there. You can see that it is predominantly annotation based. Okay, and REST integration is out of the box. So the in servlet itself, you can say that this particular method. When we go to REST, you will understand how easy it is to do a REST-based web service. Right. Other than that, nothing major in servlet 3. I think the key are programmatic addition of filters and listeners. Modular XMS we already used to do, but now it is out of the box support. And cool thing is asynchronous processing support. Like I said, we still need to try how this works. Now the REST I tried and it's very cool, right? So you don't need to go get RESTlet or any other REST API and break your head getting it configured. Add another servlet which basically takes care of servlet, which takes care of all your REST request response. Here it is annotation based. So if you look at this, I am saying, okay. No, I'm not able to mark. 1 second, I'm struggling with this marker. 1 second. Okay. Okay, I got it. So here what I'm saying is this place bit bean is a stateless bean, and I'm giving a path. So this path is the URI. Of course, it is prefixed with the application context, the web context, and this is the URI for this. Okay, URI prefix for this particular bean, and this is the URI for this particular method. So if you guys know how to do REST programming, I'm sure you guys will appreciate how simple it is now, right? So eventually, if you want to call this place bid as a REST service, you are saying HTTP : the application server blah 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 : the port blah 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 / the web context / web services / bid and bidder. You see what I'm saying? So that is what you see here, right? So that gets invoked here. So it is as simple as that. And you can also say, what content needs to be served. You can say that the content that is served here is XML, or the content that is served here is a plain text. You can also, there are annotations for that. Another cool thing about this is most of the data structures like arrays, this complex data structures that we have are out of the box supported for serialization. So if you have an array list that you're returning from place bid, let us say for example, and you're saying this output of this is an XML, JavaEE6 takes care of actually serializing that object to a XML directly. But you still have the flexibility. Suppose you have your own complex, entity bean or an POJO which you want to return. You can implement a method called, I think, what is that method? I'm not getting it. So there is a method you can implement which basically you can define your own way of serializing that particular thing, right? So the method name is actually, I did that 1 second. Yeah. So message body reader. So you can implement that message body reader interface, and you can have your own way of serializing this particular object that you want. So it is as simple as that. So you don't have to break your head in defining it in XML, defining it in the servlet context and all that. So another cool feature. Again, like I said, it is integrated with CDI and EJB directly, and it is completely REST specification support is there. Whatever is there in the specification is implemented here. So which is again a cool feature. Moving on, bean validation, again cool, another cool feature, right? So you don't have to write separate logic to do basic validation. So if you see this, what I am doing here is I'm saying the bidder, okay, the minimum and maximum value I'm doing, I'm giving as a annotation, right here. Again, this is not something new, but out of the box it is supported. That is the new thing. There were frameworks, validation frameworks, which we could have used for annotations, but the cool thing here is everything is in one place. So you don't have to download the new frameworks, test them. It is all coming out of the box. So that is the cool thing about this constraints. So, and you can define various constraints, you know, you can actually do it on the fly, right? So that is the beauty of this. Moving on to Java Persistence API, and for the people who have used Hibernate, JPA implementation, this is not new, but what is new here is the out-of-the-box support, okay, and support for embedded objects, collections, maps, and ordered lists. So which means you can actually do a select all, which could be a output. The output could be a array list or a map, hash map, and the JPA API knows how to actually process that. Okay, so which is a cool thing. You don't have to go through cursor and add them to the array list. So here is an example. And caching, there is a lot of caching inbuilt. One-to-many is supported, joins are supported, and then there is a supporting API called Criteria API, which I'll discuss in the next slide. There is also JPQL enhancements. There are new keywords added to the JPQL to cater to some of the special queries that we have, right? So here is an example, right? So user ID is the column which is mapped to user ID here, and here is another column, right? Public set. It is a set of strings, and you can actually do that. See, it's a collection table. So when you're doing a lot of joins, the return value of a join is typically array of objects, right? So you don't have to do any processing there. You create an object which is a join of 2-3 tables, and you can return a map of those objects, or you can return a list of those objects. So here is another example, map of strings. This is one cool feature, right? Yeah, the criteria API, quick example. You can build your own criteria programmatically. You don't have to hard code it. On the fly, you can build the criteria. So here is so you don't have to do a lot of string coding. Here is an example of how you do select. So what you see here is done programmatically on the right side. So this is just an example. But then, practically, we may still actually do building of criteria using string processing. But this is a good practice to do actually, because it is actually mapped to the various data objects, and a lot of validations you can build in, so that you don't mess up when you are doing the string processing or building the select query on the fly, right? So that is the beauty here. So with that, in the interest of time, let me quickly jump onto the scenario, and then I hope we have time to have question and answer. The scenario is very, very, okay. Okay, so here is a scenario, simple account management facelet that we want to build. So if you are thinking like a designer or an architect to do an account management, what are the various components I need, right? All you need is a facelet and a set of pages which uses that facelet, an account EJB, and an account entity bin. So this is in line with MVC architecture, right? So this is the model, this is the controller, this is the view kind of a thing, right? So the most of the logic is here. Of course, the controller is more to do UI control, but this is more to do the business logic here, right? So this runs in the JSF engine. This runs in the EJB container, as you can see, right? So the account facelet sends get account information action, which goes to the account EJB, okay, which basically uses JPA to fill the account entity on the request context. Okay. Yeah. And then what happens here is it returns the account entity bean to Facelet. Now Facelet can navigate through the account API, and internally it can use CDA services to do some more queries, right? Sorry, expression language. So it can use expression languages to do a query not to the database, to the entity bean itself. So don't think that it will go back to the database directly. It can browse through the, if you have a complex entity bean with objects and objects inside objects and all that. So the Facelet can use expression language to actually resolve some of these components. So that kind of speeds up the thing. And then see, it can do it can actually do a query here. So you can see that how the validation works, the validation that is happening through bean validation framework here. So if you are entering some new values onto the entity bean, so here is a new value that is created for the entity bean. If you're creating a new account, it uses bean validation service to validate if the fields that you have inputted is correct, right? So, and then you do the update account, right? So it is as simple as what you just saw. Only 3 components, and you can see how simple it is to build an application like this, right? So this is the change in the paradigm, or this is the change in the way you look at designing or architecting solutions for JEE6, right? Keep it simple, keep it thin, so that, the whole idea of JEE6 is to reduce the fat, to have a slim application server running there. So we don't want to, as application programmers or architects, we don't want to load the application server with our components, so with our new framework. So try to use as much as possible from the out-of-the-box features. Unless required, don't bring in any new frameworks or any new plugins or add-ons into this, right? So in summary, I think I'm putting the same chart. I think we all agree. I hope you guys agree with some of the points that I've put there. With that, I will take any questions.
Vijay, there is an announcement that JavaEE7 is also going to release in 2012.
No, I'm not sure about that. But there are a lot of early adopters. If you look at this, there are a lot of application servers have already caught up to JavaEE6. Maybe JavaEE7 could be just a delta. I don't know. But already Glassfish version 3, JBoss 6, I think, WebSphere 8, WebLogic 11, I think, 11 or 11G, I don't know. Then Genome is also implemented at, I think, I don't know, remember the version number, the latest, right? Resin 4, again, Resin 4 is just a web profile, so you will not get all of the stuff. So these are some of the application servers who are already into the implementation. I think WebSphere 8 is going to get released soon.
WebSphere 8 is already released, no?
It's already released? Okay. Because I've been using beta, so okay. I apologize. Any other questions?
Okay, I guess we are close to time. So thank you everyone for joining in, and I'll just take one last quick stop to see if there is a question. We can take one more question before we close this call. Okay then, Vijay, thank you so much for doing a very informative session. I'm sure it was a great learning. I'm looking at some of the comments in the chat. I think it was very well received. It was very short notice where Vijay agreed to do this session, so please accept our acknowledgement and appreciation for that. And to all the participants, thank you for taking time to join this session. The presentation, the PDF version is already uploaded on the community site. The recorded session would be made available very shortly. I gather there were some guests who had challenges with audio and the rendering of the presentation due to network issues. So you may want to refer back to the recorded session. And if you have any questions,
Now departing.
post that
to Bangalore.
Now departing.
that on the community. And we would have the next session tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., which is the technical keynote on what's new in Java 7. We will be announcing IBM's Java 7 this week, and we will have the technical lead for IBM's Java 7, Trent Gray-Donald, deliver the keynote session tomorrow. So please be encouraged to join that session. We will also upload an interview with Trent today, where he will talk about his experiences with Java 7 and where Java technology is going and advice for developers. We will also start posting, as I said, modules, self-running modules, which we call Java Technology Bytes on various interesting aspects of Java technologies. And starting today, we are running a week-long blog fest. So I encourage everyone to please go ahead and blog your thoughts on Java. So thanks again with that.
Raju.
Yeah.
Raju, where it is uploaded in the today's presentation?
So if you go to the community and go to the file section, you would see the PDF version available. You would also see the recorded session uploaded at the same place.
Yeah, I'm in the community section.
Yeah.
Sorry, where it is exactly? Because
so if you go down to the community section, the last section is the file section.
we need to develop. We need to log into DeveloperWorks.
Yes. So